I don't think it's the only way to prepare yourself for leadership in business. There's a lot of very focused people that, on problem solving and learning and organizational. Sports isn't the only path to do that. But yes, I found it so powerful. And of course, I'm in the sports business now. So the analogies are used every day here at Brooks.
Area that you enjoy more than the others, or did you just find something in each bit, in marketing, in finance,
Yeah.
technology?
I think, as I've often said, as a CEO, I've become dangerous in every area, and I love learning from digital to manufacturing to, the finance side of things. I've had enough experience now in every area, but what I loved in business school was what I call competitive strategy, and what I mean by that is you have to solve for the strategy of your enterprise, of your brand, and of your business, and it's not just forward facing and winning over the customer and how you compete and win the customer. It's business model and the unique way that you put together your strategy and business model with better economics or more effectiveness or more efficiency, path to market, whatever that might be. But I got intrigued in all the casework and strategy work, both in undergraduate and graduate schools, of how companies solved their presentation to the customer and how they competed in the industry. And there are barriers to entry on the brand side, but there's also barriers to entry you can create in business model and stickiness and so on and so forth. So I love that puzzle. And I became kind of a student of how brands and companies became successful, both in terms of those business model and customer presentation. So yeah, I still love it. Our category is so dynamic. It's changing all the time. The consumer's changing. The competitive set's changing. It's just a blast. It's one of the things that's kept me at Brooks. It's very dynamic category. Nothing quite stays the same for very long. It's challenging, but it's a lot of fun. So definitely, I would say that whole competitive strategy puzzle solving area, I just love it. It's really fun.
I guess also the individual bits aren't that meaningful on their own. I mean, finance only has a meaning if it's going to be used to finance something. And a product only has a meaning if it's going to help some people.
Yeah, and I think what I've learned too is that, when we've hired for people across our organization, on the finance side, on the legal side, when we built out our legal department, whatever it is, we're always looking for that business gene that somebody might has. They're a fantastic, analyst or finance manager, controller, VP finance, CFO, but they've also got the business gene where they're gonna help us, create this playbook and path to build and scale and grow our business too. And same on the legal side. We've got a fantastic general counsel and a small legal team, but they all have that business gene, I would say. So yeah, it's definitely, we're looking for functional experts that also want to be part of a brand and a business that's trying to solve and compete. So I think yeah, I learned that on the banking side. My first job as a commercial banking, I was lending money to businesses, and I got proficient at it. But gosh, it looked like so much more fun, Alex, on the other side of the table, where they were going to take this capital and actually build out a business strategy with it. And I was just looking across the table in my early years as a banker and said, I want to be on that side of the table. It just looked like more fun. So I think we're always looking for that person that has the skill set, including in human resources or marketing, what have you, but they appreciate the rest of what the team is doing and what we're trying to do as a business.
And it kind of reminds you of, Warren Buffett's statement about, being a better business person has made him a better investor, and being a better investor has made a better business person.
That's it. I think we know that, we're going to be a great investment for Berkshire Hathaway if we can solve for the customer and create a business model that's profitable with high returns on capital through it. We have to solve for all of that. And so that's what we do. And so if you just come in and are an expert at managing a finance function, that's great. But, we're trying to solve, this puzzle on the business side, and we want everybody helping us with that puzzle.
So your first job was at a commercial bank, and then what did you do after that?
So I spent 3 years at the largest bank in the Minneapolis Ninth Federal Reserve District. At the time, it was Norwest. Now it's Wells Fargo, and I was a lending officer in their group after a training program. Again, loved it, learned a lot, learned how to see business strategy come through the financial statements, and the decisions you made came through the P&L. You could see them come through the balance sheet and ultimately come out in cash flow. So I learned so much about looking at financial statements and connecting it through to the business's sort of strategy and performance in the marketplace. But I knew I wanted to run a company. I had this dream that I wanted to run a business. So I went back to business school at Dartmouth, and I came out of there and I went to work for Pillsbury in their M&A group, corporate development, where the idea there was you spent 2 years in that corporate group and then you went into one of the businesses. That was perfect for me, Alex. It's exactly what I wanted to do, and that path worked out. But in my early career, so much of it is just being around smart people and learning as much as you can. And I felt fortunate because that's exactly how it happened for me, both at Norwest and at Pillsbury.
And at that time, you were already involved with some turnarounds.
The things that take your attention are troubled businesses, and so I had to liquidate a small apparel company. I didn't manage the loan, but I got the project of, okay, this company is going to cease to do business and you have to liquidate it. So I saw a lot of stress and outcomes of things that weren't working at the bank. And at Pillsbury as well, I had an assignment as assistant to the chairman at Pillsbury where you're doing assessment of all of the business units. They were struggling to grow. And we had Booz Allen in, we did a huge consulting project, and I was attached to that. And at Pillsbury, what I ended up seeing was that we had systemically underinvested in the brands. And we had delivered something like 10 years of quarterly profit and revenue growth, every quarter revenue and profit growth. But there was almost systemic underinvestment in some of the brands. And so we weren't earning new customers anymore. The brands weren't competitively strong in every area. So huge learning for me. And I just, I came away from Pillsbury saying, okay, don't ever do that. You have to take care of the business so it's healthy with the customer, and otherwise you can't grow profit. You just can't. There's diminishing returns to cutting costs at some point, and every business has opportunity to cut cost, and that's always something that everybody needs to look at. But I think the growth puzzle was what I took away from Pillsbury, because again, if you're not solving and growing, somebody else is, and you're getting weaker. So yeah, I learned so much about, watching different business units compete and create playbooks that had different emphases and priorities. And sometimes when it was all about short-term success, they sacrificed the long term. So I learned a lot. It was a great eye opener for me early in my career.
And before joining Brooks, you'd also had another experience, if I'm right, of turning around a business in a kind of manager role.
Well, so after I was at Pillsbury, I followed one of their executives to the Coleman Company. I went on to run several businesses, and each one of them were turnarounds. And I often describe them too as brand repositionings, right? Where they had just kind of lost their way. Maybe they were trying to do too many things and not doing, anything quite well or good enough at least to win the space. And so I ran 2 divisions at Coleman, the Coleman Company, which was outdoor and sporting goods. I ran a water ski company called O'Brien Water Sports, which is water skis, wakeboards, and everything you can do behind a boat. Small category, but a small global business, and turned that around and had some fun and success at it. I went on from there to run a snowboard company, Sim Sports, in the early days of the snowboard industry. And it was a similar situation where it needed to focus and create some clarity on how it was going to compete and be positioned in the marketplace. And we had some success there too. And then later I was on the board at Brooks, but it led me to Brooks, and I became at Brooks the 4th CEO in 2 years. Brooks had lost their way a bit and was struggling and not profitable, and actually had a lot of debt because it had recently been purchased by a private equity company. So yeah, Brooks was my 4th turnaround sort of repositioning, And I looked at it differently because a great category, and I saw an opportunity to really, really create a brand and a business in it. But just in the early days, it was essentially bankrupt on paper. It was in tough shape.
So was it, and at the time, was it Brooks Sports or Brooks Running?
Yeah, the legal name was Brooks Sports because at the time their vision was to still play the full athletic playbook. It was running centric, but like every other brand, it had court shoes and cross training and then it had all the good, better, best price points from $30 family footwear shoes, which is what all the major brands had, all the way up to performance running products. And so as a small company, we were trying to play the whole field in all of these different categories, and we weren't doing it well, and our brand wasn't that strong. So I think that's where the Brooks Sports Inc. came in. The company's corporate name reflected the early vision to be huge and big in full line athletic footwear. And when I came in, the only thing that was working with was running. And so we actually changed our doing business name to Brooks Running Company. Our legal name is still Brooks Sports Inc., but we're doing business now as Brooks Running Company, and we're in the year 22 of doing that.
And at the time, the investors were, your investors were private equity. If I remember, how did you, create a vision and, get them on board for it?
It's the biggest, I think it was the biggest part of my job, and I had to solve it. I think especially in a turnaround or repositioning, the real question is, can you get everybody that matters on this new vision and on the playbook? And the employees mattered, the customers mattered, and our owners mattered. And so when we brought this together and we'd done our analysis and homework, we had good margins on running products. We had a couple of products there that mattered in running, but we needed to build off that. So we put this plan together in the short term of all the things that we had to do to clean up the business, get positive cash flow, get profitable. All the while we were building out a product strategy to really compete in performance running. And that's what I did in the first year. I remember I have my presentations this day and what I presented to the board and to our employees and our leadership team, and then to our customers. And people were second guessing it. The employees had a pool on how long I would last. And because here's why, Alex, it sounded like what everyone else had said before. It didn't sound that unique, but we focused our resources and we acted on it. We actually ceased making 50% of our product line, all of the lower and less expensive shoes in all these other categories. We're only going to focus our efforts in product on premium performance running product. And so about half of our retail business went away too. So we shrunk the company. And what I knew, guess what? We relieved inventory. We created 10 million of cash flow in the first year. We got profitable this much, but we cleaned up the balance sheet by getting rid of all this inventory. And so the private equity folks, we paid down a lot of debt. We had them on board because we were making progress on the balance sheet, which we needed to do. And we eked out a profit in that first year. And the next year we hit our plan and we set metrics on gross margin and profitability that were compelling and exciting. And within 3 years, we hit them.
And so what happened? What did you do in terms of trying to persuade the customers and tell them, look, we're really about running now? How did that work in kind of transitioning in their mind space?
So the smaller customers, the running stores, loved it. And they were watching us, and as we improved our products, as we introduced new products, they would be with us in creating trial on them. And then if they worked, they fit, the ride was right. If a runner appreciated them 20 miles in on fit, feel, and ride, and that's what we were really working for, is the second shoe. The frequent runner buys 2.6 pairs of shoes a year at that time. And so the key wasn't to sell them the first pair. The key was 20 miles in, they know if they're ever going to buy that shoe again. So it was really building in performance, and that's the game we were on. So the small running shops that were seeing a lot of runners every day, every week, they could see our products were improving and they were gaining confidence and putting their trust in them. The challenge we had was sporting goods, where often they would say, Jim, we're not going to build your brand. If you build good products and there's demand for them, we'll carry them. So we had a quiet 5 years, I would say, with large customers that were waiting for us to build demand in our core products. And we didn't chase it. We knew we had to earn it. It's a different mindset, right? You can't chase sales on the premium side. You have to earn it. And we knew how to do that in running products. So, we had to, with those folks, it would be patient. I would make calls to Dick's Sporting Goods, which is the largest sporting goods retailer in America. And for 5 years, I would show up and I'm saying, I'm not here to sell you anything today. I want to let you know how we're doing, what we're building, where we're focused, and I want us to be on your radar when you're ready. And we're the #1 running brand at Dick's today. We're bigger than any other brand in the United States at the largest sporting goods retailer in the U.S. and the largest purveyor of running products. So you have to earn that. And so I think we told people where we were going, and then it's all about execution in every business, right, Alex? We had to prove it. We had to execute and earn the runner a pair of feet at a time, basically. So it was hard work and it was patient work, but we knew, we felt we knew the puzzle of how you earned a runner, and we built that up. And when I started, the business was 65 million in revenue in 2001, and we jettisoned about 25 million of revenue. So we really started from a base of about $40 million, and we'll do just about 1.3 billion this year. So it's not 50 billion, but we love it. It's a great business. It's sustainable. We're building affinity with millions of runners. That's where the brand is. It's with the runner.
So when you were winning runners one pair of feet at a time, but you weren't doing it directly. You were doing it via the stores.
That's right. And at that time, there was no internet. There was no e-commerce. And you could do, direct stores in 2001, but it was pretty rare. Lululemon was a fairly new phenomenon at that point. So we have a strategy that's runner focused, and we think the winning strategy for runners is to be a multi-channel distributed brand, because you've got to be where runners shop. So, we're really good at building wholesale relationships with retailers and servicing them well. We work really hard at it. In the last decade, we've learned how to be a digital marketer and connect digitally directly with runners and create demand, wherever they shop. And we have a really strong web business. We don't have brick and mortar retailer stores of significance. We have a few stores around the world, and we may have more than a few in the next several years. But we think the multi-channel model is the way runners shop and the way they find new products and brands. So, there's a lot of great consumer direct businesses, but in running, we think we've got the right strategy.
So at the time, not having that many resources, how did you persuade the wholesalers to represent your product properly and to convince runners?
So, I think the product has to work. The running shops, and there's still about 1,000 of them in the United States, and there's some strong ones in Europe as well, in Australia and other places in the world. Those people are curators of the best running products in the marketplace. And many customers come to them because they have something in their brain. They just know they need the right shoe. They don't want to get injured. They want to have the most comfortable shoe, the one that's right for them. And the worst day for a frequent runner is the day they get injured and they can't run for 3 to 6 weeks. So the right shoe has always been something that they feel they want. So these retailers are curators of the best product. We have to convince them that we have great product and to bring that blue box out. Many times what they're doing, Alex, is if you're a runner and you're coming in, you're saying, okay, I'm ready to try something new. I'd like to learn more about the products that are out there now. Either I'm not sure about the shoe I've been on, or I don't know what shoe I should be on. They'll typically, do some discussion and fit analysis and why you run and how you run. Then they'll bring out 3 different shoes for you to try on. And we just want to be one of those. We want our blue box to be one of those 3. And if we can get on foot, the early research we did, we won 60% of the time. If you tried our shoe on, just because of the comfort aspects of it and the fit aspects of it, in the early days, we were winning 60% of those sort of try-ons. And we still do really well at those. So that's, that's really how we built the brand. And they're service oriented, not all of them. The internet now, a lot of people maybe are buying their second pair online. We see a ton of cross shopping, and people are shopping everywhere, and not often exclusively just online or just in store. But I think that's what we've always tried to create. And then over time, we create share of mind and heart amongst millions of runners. But that's how we built it.
That by having really a great shoe at the basis, that people persuades kind of experts in the field, people with running shops who run themselves a lot, who've been in touch with have lots of contact with runners, and who also want to give the best product to their customers, because that's the point of having a running shop and not a general shop.
That's right. And if somebody's not happy with fit, they may never come back to you again, or they'll bring the shoe back. We have pretty generous return policies. If the shoe's not working, the retailers typically want to swap it out, and so do we. So they really want to put good solutions on people for word of mouth and repeat business. And that's how running works. It's not a once and done, in this category, is because the shoes wear out if you're putting miles in. And so that's the challenge. We think the challenge is to earn the second sale, not the first one. And so that's how we've built our products. And we're one of the few brands that all of our design is biomechanically based, the geometries, and it's based on research of the mechanics of human motion and your unique needs as an individual on your natural habitual joint motion. So we're biomechanically designed products, and that's why running on especially the roads is a repetitive motion, sometimes not just over 30 minutes or 60 minutes, but over hours in a marathon. So mechanics matter on anything you're doing repetitively for that long. Think about carpal tunnel on typing keyboards, right? Mechanics matter, and that's our brand has been focused on that literally for 60 years, on the mechanics of motion as it relates to running. So that's where we're trying to prove ourselves to the runner mile after mile.
And you started with some iconic shoes. I think you had two shoes which are iconic of your brand.
Yeah, initially when I came on board at the time, there was stability categories, neutral categories of shoes, cushioning shoes, and then there was this extreme, stability shoe called motion control. This was a category at the time. These shoes still exist, but it's just now, they're now the overall support sort of construct. But our two shoes since the 90s, the Beast and the Addiction, are still two of our best-selling shoes to this day. But the key was to have a stability trainer at mid-price that was an everyday trainer that most runners are seeking, either neutral or stability. So we created the Adrenaline GTS, and the fourth version, which came the year after I was there, was the version where we really dialed in fit, feel, and ride with some unique stability technology and better materials, and a last that just had an incredibly balanced shoe mile after mile, and the runners knew it and the retailers knew it. And so that shoe is one of our best-selling shoes today. It's the second best-selling trainer in running in the United States at retail. And the number one is the Ghost, which is the neutral sister shoe to the Adrenaline. But the Adrenaline GTS is just been central to our brand around the world. And that shoe was really perfected in maybe 2002. And runners figured it out. We're selling 5 million pairs a year of that shoe now, consistently year in, year out.
I noticed that shoe companies tend to have some shoes which are iconic for them. I don't know, like the Gucci loafer, or Adidas Stan Smith, or I don't know, what is there a connection with that and your business in running, as a shoe company, or is it just happens, is it just by chance?
No, I think it's interesting because, everybody has a relationship with their feet, and, all apparel and footwear is personal expression. So sometimes it's personal expression, the brand and that silhouette, that model just says something about who you are, and it's part of your uniform. But in performance, it's typically franchise driven. We call these franchise products. They're large, repeatable franchises that lots of consumers become loyal to, or people that are looking to the space and saying, okay, I want a sandal, or I want a running shoe, I want a stability shoe that works for me. They oftentimes look at the best shoes in the space in the category that have earned leadership in that segment. And I think that's what's different in apparel. Apparel isn't quite that way. There are franchise products, but they don't repeat over the years as much. And if you look at the best-selling shoes in running, they tend to be the best-selling shoes globally, everywhere in the world that people run. And then therein lies the fact that I don't think it's an accident, Alex, that people are smart, consumers smart, and they find their way to the best design products, the products that perform the best, and sort of capture, a position in the category for good reason that they earn. And so that is absolutely the success model in running, is franchise products. And the retailer likes them, their factories like them because there's repeatable volume. And those are the products that we build our brand on, and we build our business on. That's the goal, to gain. It's great the fashion business is a whole different business. And that's a great business too, but you've got to refresh and replenish. And it's really built on design, color, and silhouette. We have those elements that matter, but what really drives it is fit, feel, and ride mile after mile.
It also kind of seems similar to me. For instance, Crocs is a name that comes to mind in the sense that they've got a kind of like a very specific purpose. They kind of they're waterproof, and you can walk on like hard things with them, and they can be used on boats and so on. And it's quite a specific one. And then Birkenstock in like the sandal space, that kind of comes to mind as well as like kind of very specific use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think what it relates to me is trust. I think when you see those products and they garner a space that they become known for, people trust them for that from a quality standpoint, fit, feel, comfort, silhouette, and the brand becomes to stand for those elements. That's what really drives the footwear space in so many areas, I think. But it's the customers are voting with their feet and with their credit cards, so to speak. And over time, you have credibility and trust for what you stand for.
How do you think these these lessons can be applied generally for businesses in niches?
I think that what's applicable across is, one, I think the biggest choice that every brand makes. I'm going to speak to brands more on the consumer side. And I think in other businesses, business model always matters. But for brands, the number one choice you make, and you're in control of it, is your customer focus. What customers are you focused on? And so that's part of the power of our success. Is we picked a big category. Running is a big global category, and by the way, it includes walking and hiking and trail. But we've picked that customer and we focused on them for 22 years.